Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound Podcast, full card betting guide here for UFC Fight Night. Duncan taking on Moicano in the main event. And you know what we're here to do, break down each individual matchup on this card from a betting perspective, giving you my thoughts, my feelings, and my analysis, what I would play, what I'd look to avoid. And as always, if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button as we start off in the early prelim opener here of Dakota Hope taking on Kai Kamaka III. Obviously, this one was thrown together on Tuesday, and the props at this current time are not out. But one thing is for sure, in a lot of Kai Kamaka's fights, they do tend to go the distance. We're looking at the judges' scorecards in most of his fights. Dakota Hope is naturally a finisher on the regional scene. He has been to some decisions, but I'm looking for this one to go over here. The angle I would look to take. I do think that would be a little bit chalky. I do think it's most likely going to be, minus 400 or above. And that's the way I'd play it here. I would attack the Kai Kamaka money line. The way I see this one playing out here is that he's got a lot more experience inside the UFC, inside Bellator and the PFL. I think that Dakota Hope here, obviously stepping in on somewhat short notice. He was supposed to fight on a regional scene main event promotion for a belt, but that was in May. I have to question here whether he's going to have the skill set to be able to beat a guy like Kai Kamaka. I think Kai Kamaka's a little bit faster to the punch in terms of throwing the straighter shots. He's got good takedown defense. He's fought the higher level competition. He's moved over to Vegas in a good camp over at Extreme Couture. I like him here. I think his line will probably rise a little bit. If you can get him anywhere closer to even money, I like that as well. And I think Kai Kamaka by decision's the prop you've got to look at. He's most likely going to go long. I think Hope is a good athlete. He's a nice prospect. He carries a lot of power, but I think he will slow down as fights go on. I think that the veteranship here of Kai Kamaka should be able to get this one done. I do trust him in this one. I personally, I'm not going to take him. He's not something I'm going to parlay. Obviously, the fight being thrown together on such short notice on the Tuesday of this week is not something I'm really looking to bet. I think the over is probably the only thing I would look to say is safe here. Me personally, not going to touch it. Just my thoughts and feelings. We're talking judges' scorecards. We're talking Kai Kamaka by decision. That's the only way I would really look to play this one. When the props are out, check them. If you get Kai Kamaka plus 200 by decision, love that. Other than that, don't want to touch this one too much at all. And next up, we've got Melissa Gatto here taking on Barbosa. And I think Barbosa should be able to get this one done. I'm not going to be parlaying her too much this week, but I think she's got the better, well-rounded skill set. And I think that the wrestling for her judoka background is going to be the thing that's going to get her the unanimous decision victory here over Melissa Gatto. Gatto coming off of a 2-year layoff. I like this fight to go long. I think that's the safe play here. Again, I think we see judges' scorecards in these opening bouts. And I think we see a lot of finishes later on. So stay tuned for that. But I'm going to say the safe play here is that we see the judges' scorecards at minus 250. I think that's a good price tag. I'm going Barbosa money line here, not top ticket parlays, but I do like her in sort of a third or fourth level parlay with some other people that you're not too sure about. I like Barbosa here to get this one done, and I think that she wins here by unanimous decision. That's how I'd play this one at around plus 115. I think that realistically, both women on the feet are going to have a lot of success, but I think the grappling edge is going to go to Barbosa. I think if she gets a lot of top pressure, she's going to be able to ride out a lot of time on the control clock here and ultimately win rounds with top pressure. I think both women have got good enough jiu-jitsu to stay safe, and I think this one sees the judges' scorecards. That's how I would play it. I'm going Barbosa here, not top ticket, but I feel she should be able to get this one done. And next up, we've got Azamat Bakoyev here taking on Tresean Gore. Give me Bakoyev all day here. I think Bakoyev money line is safe. If he wants to get this one done on the feet or on the ground, he should be the better fighter everywhere. And I think he's going to get the knockout here. That's how I'm playing this one. I think he trusts in his hands. I think he knows that he's got the dynamite in his fists to be able to get the finish. And I think Tresean Gore, if he trades in the pocket, although he is a decent striker himself, I think that the power of Bakoyev here is going to be enough to be able to find the finish. I like Bakoyev money line top ticket. I'm definitely going to be parlaying that myself. I know it's very chalky. If you want to take him inside the distance, I don't blame you as well. I think that he will find the finish here on Gore. And I think Bakoyev round 1 knockout. I think that's how you got to look. Obviously, him coming off of his first loss inside the UFC to last week's Dog of the Week. obviously in that fight, he trusted in his hands, and I think he paid the price. Him not being the better striker against Yusri Belgari, and he paid the price, kind of falling in love with his hands. He might go back to the wrestling, but either way, I think he looks for the finish with a ground and pound TKO, or he's able to find the chin here with the first round knockout on the feet with the boxing. Gore is a decent fighter at times. I think that he's one of these guys that he's better than his record suggests. I'll give him that at 5-4 Ultimate Fighter winner. I don't necessarily think that he's all that, but I think if he stands and trades with Bokoyev, he will get knocked out here. That's how I see this fight playing out. I like Bokoyev, top ticket this week. I think he gets back in the win column, and this is the right opponent for him to be able to capitalize on and find the knockout. And next up, we've got Haley Cowan here taking on Alice Pereira. And I got to say, I want nothing to do with this fight at all. The only angle I have here is that maybe we see some violence. Maybe we see one of these two want to come out here and make a statement. Maybe we have the 20-year-old in Alice Pereira here. Not necessarily, very skilled overall. I don't want to say too many bad things. She's only 20 years old, but the angle I'm taking here is that one of these women gets a finish to make a statement here to kind of, really sort of settle themselves in and back in the UFC. Obviously, Cowan has been off of a little bit of a layoff. She's had a lot of injuries. She's 34. I think she needs to make a statement for this sort of young up-and-coming fighter coming in here that she belongs and that she can get it done against a 20-year-old up-and-comer. And the 20-year-old in Alice Pereira obviously wants to make a statement because she kind of had a stinky performance in her first UFC debut. So I think fight not to go the distance. We might see, hopefully someone slips on a banana peel here and we get the plus 225 to hit. But I want absolutely nothing to do with this fight. If I would have to lean, it would be dog or pass. So I would take Cowan, who is the slight underdog here. And I think we see this one go over 1.5 rounds as maybe the safe play. Who knows with this one? I got to be honest with you. When it was coming to do these graphics and kind of picking out what bets I would look to tackle, I would just stay away from this one in my God's honest truth. I would just avoid this one at all costs. If it were gun to my head and I had to pick something, it would be fight, ends inside the distance, root for violence, and just sit back and hope that someone gets a finish, or tackle the money line play here with Cowan and attack the plus money. But I want nothing to do with this one. I think Cowan has deficiencies in the grappling. Alice Pereira has shown that she kind of dances around on the outside, and I think she has a hole in her grappling as well. So, like I said, want absolutely nothing to do with this one. Talked about this one for long enough. Moving on. And next up, we've got Darius Flowers here taking on Lando Vannata. And I like the Vannata side. I mean, I don't love this one too much either, but I think there's an angle that we can take if you want to attack some plus money, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But I think we see this one hit the judges' scorecards. I think this one goes long. But I think that there's a sneaky angle here where we could talk about Vannata, submission or decision. We could throw that and sprinkle that in for even money. If you take the double method for Vannata to get the submission or see the judges' scorecards, that's about, minus 110. You can get that line down from minus 200, minus 200, minus 210 kind of range. I would not touch Darius Flowers. I don't think he's UFC level. He's not proven anything to me that he deserves to be in the UFC. And I wouldn't even bet him at all. It would have to be Vannata or pass. At least he's proven that he can hang in the UFC. Obviously coming off of a 3-year layoff, he's not where I want to really lay my money. I won't be betting on this one, but if you really want some action on this fight, I would take Vannata by submission. And the reason for that is because in a lot of Darius Flowers fights, whether that be on the regional scene or in the UFC, guys look to take him to the ground. Obviously, Evan Elder was able to take him down and submit him, and that's usually how things play out. People see that takedown deficiency, and they take him down to the ground. Vannata has a decent ground game. He is I want to say he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and I think that he can find the submission here at plus 300. He could come in here, get the takedown, which is not going to be put up much of a fight from Darius Flowers. Look for the submission here. Make it an easy night after a 3-year layoff. If he comes in here and decides to stand and trade, then all bets are off. He could get knocked out by a guy that, is very aggressive, that, can get in your face and land a big shot, which is what Flowers is capable of. But I think Vannata could come in here and find the submission. 3-1. Sprinkle it. I don't love it. I don't want to parlay any of these guys. I think both of them should just hang it up at this point. I don't understand how Flowers is in the UFC. I think Vannata, obviously coming off of a 3-year layoff, is very untrustworthy at 34. But that's the angle I would take if I was looking at it. When I'm looking through the odds, that's all I can really see that I would attack. But like I said, not going to be touching this one myself. Just my thoughts and opinions on this matchup. And next up, we've got Stuart Nickel here taking on Alexandro Costa. And I like Costa this week. I think he should be able to get back in the win column. Top ticket. Feel good about him. And I think realistically, it's just because he's the more well-rounded fighter. The way I break down Stuart Nickel fights is that he has plan A, but he has no plan B. If he can't get you to the ground with his wrestling, he has no plan B. He doesn't have the power in the hands like Costa does. He hasn't fought the higher level competition that Costa does. And I think Costa's going to be motivated after his last loss against Korea to be able to get back in the win column. And I could see him getting a submission here. I think Costa moneyline, like I said, top ticket. Costa inside the distance. He does have power in the hands, and he will look for a submission when Nickel decides to wrestle. And I think that, we saw in the Jesus Aguilar fight that Nickel leaves his neck out there against guys that he can't afford to do that with. And obviously Costa training with Diego Lopez over at Lobo Gym. He's a black belt himself. And most of his wins have come via submission. So what better way to be able to get back in the win column by letting, Nickel basically implement his game and finding a guillotine. And that's pretty much how I see this one playing out. I think Costa could find the guillotine here, plus 370 for him by submission. And I think that's very live. If he doesn't beat him up on the feet and land a big kill shot, I think that's how this one could play out. I think Costa by sub is very live in this one. I think it's got a chance. We'll talk about another submission prop from a Brazilian later on. But I think that Costa by submission is how I would look to play this one. I like him top ticket. I feel good about him. And I just don't think that Stuart Nickel's going to have a plan B if he can't get the takedowns and top control, which I definitely don't think he'll get against a bigger, stronger Costa who's going to be motivated. And I think he finds a submission here. And next up, we've got Jose Delano here taking on Rucella. And I got to say, I do like Delano. I think he's a nice addition to the UFC. When you watch tape on him over in Contender Series, he's got decent boxing. He's got nice footwork. My only concern here is that he is a big favorite for a UFC debut, along with the fact that we did see on Contender Series that Exposito was able to get him in a guillotine. And Rucella is a guy that has nice submissions. I worry about that element of the game. We'll talk about that in a moment, but I think we see this one go longer. That's how I see this one playing out. I think Delano is the right side, maybe not top ticket, kind of that third, tier parlay, third and fourth tier parlay, maybe throw it in with Barbosa, for example. I feel good about that. I like Delano. I think he's the right side. I just don't think he should be this big of a favorite. He's climbing into that minus 400 range, and I just don't agree with 4-1 in him being that big of a favorite. But I do agree that he should be able to get this one done. He's the harder hitting striker. He's the better striker. He moves his feet very well. He rolls with punches very well. My only real concern here is that Rucella is going to look to get this fight to the ground. He'd be stupid not to. You saw in that fight against William Gomez, he was able to get top control. He was able to take a guy in William Gomes down who has good takedown defense. So if he can get this fight to the mat, and he has a lot of submissions on his record, or at least he is live on the ground, Rucella by submission, I saw odds all over the place, but what I'm basically getting at here is that I think that this is a lot more live than the odds would suggest. I saw odds of up to plus 2,000 for Rucella by submission. If you want to sprinkle that, if you like the Rucella side, if you think that Robert Rucella can come in here, pull off the upset as a guy that's got more experience, that's got obviously a UFC debut under his belt, he might be able to pull off the unthinkable here and get the submission. Obviously, do your line shopping. The submission prop is very up and down. I see it as low as plus 1,100. I saw it as high as plus 2,000. I do think Delano gets it done. I just think those odds are far too wide for the probability of him pulling off a submission. It is what he looks for. That's his bread and butter. So I don't think that he comes in here and gets knocked out. I think we see the judges' scorecards. That's why I think the over 1.5 is safe. I think Delano is very measured with his pressure, and I think that Rucella's got enough experience to stay safe. But I do think Delano is the right side. If you don't like to take that Delano side, you think it's too chalky and you want to sprinkle on the submission prop, I don't blame you at those odds. I'll probably sprinkle on the Delano in a third or fourth tier parlay and call it a day. And next up, we've got Pat here taking on Thomas Peterson. I like Pat to get this knockout here, man. I don't trust Peterson. I think that his wrestling is far too overhyped. He's a two-time state high school wrestling champion, and I don't think that he's going to be able to come in here and get takedowns on Pat like people think that he is. I think the under 2.5 here, even money, is the way I would look. You could just root for violence in this one. Sloppy heavyweight fight. at times can obviously go longer, but I think Pat carries the dynamite in the hands to be able to find the finish. Obviously, Petrino was able to get Thomas Peterson out of there in the last fight, so maybe his chin's starting to fade. 6'5", 81-inch reach. He doesn't throw a ton of kicks that you have to worry about. He really just boxes and has good forward pressure. He's worked on his takedown defense. I think he keeps this one upright, and I think we see a stoppage here. I think Pat moneyline is very live. I managed to see that as low as -105. I like that play if you don't want to take the under, but I think Pat by knockout is how I would play this one. I think he gets it done early in the first 2 rounds, and he carries power, man. If you go and look at that last fight against Fry, he cut him open early, and I don't think you have to worry too much about him throwing stupid kicks and getting them caught and taken down. So I like the Pat side here. I think Garun Pat should be able to get this one done, and I like him here, and we'll talk a little bit about him in a different video for our new video for the cycle parlay. I think he should be able to get this one done by knockout, and I think that plus money is very valid. If you want to take the under 1.5 with that as well, that might get you to around +200 for Pat by knockout in the first 2 rounds. I like that. I think he should be able to get it done here. And as I said with Peterson, I think at 6'1", he's too slow for the heavyweight division. He's undersized, and I think that Pat can come in here and knock him out. And next up, we've got Zucchini taking on McMillan. I want absolutely nothing to do with this one, I got to say. I think this is far too hyped for the line. The -1,100 price tag is crazy. Fight ends inside the distance is the only thing I think's live here. I think that either guy's durability is in question. Even in McMillan's victory on Contender Series, he almost got choked out. He almost got knocked out. Obviously, a training partner, Sean O'Malley. I think that he's going to come in here and probably get this victory. That's the way that I would look. I'd look at him by knockout, probably by +200. I think that's as sort of juicy as you can get. If it's +1,900 or below, I wouldn't touch it. I need at least 2-1 if I'm going to touch the knockout prop here. I think he gets the finish inside the distance because Zucchini is not a guy that is UFC level. But me personally, I don't like this fight at all. I think McMillan is overhyped. I think the odds do not suggest that price tag. Excuse me, the odds do not suggest the skill set. And I think that this fight's much closer than the odds suggest. Watch me say all of that and McMillan comes out here and knocks him out. But my personal opinion, don't touch this one. There's better fights to bet on this card. If you want to throw, McMillan inside the distance in a long shot parlay, that -500 might have you kind of scratching your head at moments and deciding why you decided to do it. But the submission prop isn't as good as the knockout prop. I think the knockout prop is a little bit juicier. I would attack that. I think he'll probably stand and trade on the feet, throwing bombs, winging punches, and maybe he gets countered and knocked out himself. But like I said, I want nothing to do with this one. That's just the angle. That's the juice. That's the play I would look at if I had a gun to my head. But ultimately, I'm not going to be touching this one at all. And next up, we've got Estevam here taking on Ewing. I'm going with the Ewing side here. I think Ewing is the right side in my opinion. I think he's the better striker. I think he's going to do more damage. I think this one sees the judges' scorecards no matter who wins. And we've seen with Estevam, the knock on him is that he can't get it done inside the distance. Ewing is a guy as well. He's very tough, got good cardio, good footwork. I think if he can defend the takedowns, I like him to be able to get this one done by decision. He is the guy that is going to be landing the better shots and landing the damaging shots in the judges' eyes. Ewing moneyline, I like it. I think second tier parlay this week. I like him to get it done. And I think him by decision, if you can get him at +200, I think that's an absolute steal. I like him this week to get it done. He will probably be a decision prop I will play. And I think it really just comes down to the fact that Estevam at a new weight class, he's missed weight a few times at the previous weight class at 125 and now stepping up at 135. We don't know what his cardio is going to look like with the extra weight. We don't know if it's the weight cuts that's causing him the gas tank issues. Either way, I just think Ewing's takedown defense is going to be good enough. He's going to be hard to kind of corral into a corner and take down. I just trust Ewing to be able to have the better moments on the feet, and his striking is definitely better than Estevam. So that's how I would play it. I think the over 1.5 is very safe. I think that could be a lot more. I think you could argue that this one should be -550, -600, with a guy that wants to look to wrestle and a guy that's going to be darting around on the outside, throwing shots and kind of, getting out of the clinch. It's going to add up to an over 1.5 to me that's going to easily hit. So that's how I look at this one. I like Ewing to get this one done. I think he not necessarily should be safe, but I feel like he should be able to have the bigger moments in the judges' eyes with the striking. And next up, we've got Yakayev here taking on Ribeiro. And what do we do with this one? I got to shout out one of our subscribers on the channel who gave me an idea. I'm not going to claim this is my own, but Brandon R607 threw in our full card breakdown comment section under 0.5 rounds, 0.5 rounds. That's 2.5 minutes into the first round. Under that, for generational wealth here, as Yakayev, obviously in his first fight, as we all know, he came out, he was able to get the submission very quickly in that first, I think it was like 30 seconds, maybe not even. And I could see it maybe doing something very similar here. So shout out you, Brandon. I'm not going to take any sort of credibility for that. I think that's actually a good play. It's the only plus money play that I could find in this entire fight. Obviously, Yakayev at moneyline minus 2,000. I think that really says about what people think about this guy coming in. On Contender Series, I'm pretty sure when we bet him on Contender Series, he was like plus 100. So it's kind of crazy how times have changed. But you come into the UFC, you make a statement like that. Obviously, the bookmakers respect it. And I think we know in this matchup, Ribeiro is not the durability, doesn't have the durability to hang with Yakayev on the feet or on the ground. I think Yakayev inside the distance is obviously too juiced to play, but it is safe. And obviously the under 1.5, I think he gets it done here in the first round. I think he comes in. I think he gets very aggressive like he did in the first fight of his UFC debut. And I think, the under, is just how I would look to play this one. Parlay the under. I think it's definitely the only play you can really look here. And as Brandon said, generational wealth for the under 0.5 rounds, the 2.5 minute mark. And we just pray that Yakayev comes out super aggressive like he did in his last fight for that plus money. Ultimately, I don't think anything else is really playable. The money line, the inside the distance for Yakayev isn't playable. I would just take the under 1.5 or that under 0.5 rounds and run with the hills. That's about all I think you can do in this one. And that brings us to the co-main event. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button as we talk about Ricci taking on Jandiroba. Fight goes the distance. Both of these women, there's a lot of clinching that's going to happen. I think if we're going to see a finish, it's either going to be from Ricci on the feet or it's going to be, getting some sort of submission for Jandiroba. But I don't think Jandiroba is going to be able to implement her ground game against Ricci. Ricci is credentialed on the ground. That's how she started out in her professional martial arts career as a BJJ practitioner, and she's been improving the boxing, and that's why I give her the slight edge here at plus 100. I would attack that plus money for Ricci. Obviously, Jandiroba as well, 37 years old, coming off of that title opportunity she wasn't able to capitalize on, former dog of the week, and I think Ricci's boxing and her ability to be able to get a finish on the feet here is what's going to keep her in the basically in the eyes of the judges. I think she's going to do more damage. And I think that Jandiroba is going to have opportunities to take this fight to the ground because Ricci is going to present them to her. She falls into the clinch at times. She tries to go for takedowns when she has success on the feet. So I'm not super confident in Ricci, but I do think that this is the right side to be on. You've got the younger fighter who's got improved striking. She's more youthful. She's faster on the feet. She's more athletic. We've got, Jandiroba on the other side at 37 years old that's kind of been there and done that. What motivation does she have now after her title defense? We'll see come Saturday, but I think Ricci's the right side here at plus money. I think Werner actually opened as the underdog and is now closed as the favorite. I honestly believe that that's the book. The book's kind of just saying, we know you guys are going to pick Werner Jandiroba because of her experience and coming off the title fight, but I think Ricci's going to be hungry. I think she's going to prove that she actually wants to get a title shot. She's very close to a title shot, and a win over a woman that's just fought for the belt would obviously steal that for her. I think that they push Ricci, and I think there's an opportunity here to attack some plus money with the split decision prop here for Ricci. Ricci wins by split decision. We could see it. We see these split decisions all the time in women's MMA, in heavyweights. It's a good way to attack plus money here. And I think Ricci, obviously by split decision here at plus 575 is a way that you could definitely attack this one. I think it goes the distance. I think Ricci money line is how you got to play it. And I think her by split decision is always an option. Her by decision, if you want to play it, I wouldn't even bother. I would just attack the money line. But I think the split decision is also live here at plus 575. And that brings us to the main event here for UFC Fight Night. Duncan taking on Moicano. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button as we're looking to make it 2 in a row here for Dog of the Week. And who better to be Dog of the Week? The money, Moicano. The under 2.5, I think, is very live in this one. Both guys, I think, could pull off the first or second round knockout or submission here. They're both decent finishes. I will say I give the edge in the finishing to Moicano, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But money Moicano. Plus 155. Do your line shopping. You can get him at plus 165. And I think that he's a great viable underdog here to make it 2 in a row for dog of the week. I think he should be able to get this one to the ground. I think Duncan gives up his back far too much in scrambles. You go back and look at the Rebecca fight. He gives up his back. He always ends up on the ground early and often in fights. And I think that Moicano can capitalize. And I think he can make this one look like the Benoit Saint-Denis fight, which a lot of people didn't expect. But Moicano is a very good fighter on the feet and on the ground. He's fought the higher level competition. Duncan, this is a big step up in competition. I think we're underestimating Moicano. And I think here, if you want to sit back and root for violence, I don't blame you. Minus 135. Moicano moneyline, if you're with me on the dog of the week. Obviously, if you saw last week with Usry, we were able to call that one very well. I had Usry third round knockout plus 1,000 here. We talked about it on the channel. And I think Moicano here can come in and get a first or second round submission. That's how I would play this one. And that's how I see Moicano getting this one done. The submission prop is around plus 350. I saw it as high as 400. Keep an eye out for that. Again, do your line shopping, but I like Moicano here to get this one done. If you just want to attack the plus money because you think that Duncan might take him to a decision, I don't blame you. But I like Moicano here to get this one done inside the distance, early and often with the submission ground game to make it 2 in a row for dog of the week. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Enjoy the fights. Check out some of our other videos, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.